Hey everyone, welcome to Relationship Talk with the Allens, and I am Ellison.
Hey, I'm Eric.
Hi, what's going on, guys? We're going to give you guys a few minutes to come on and jump on in here because today we're going to have a great show. We are going to talk about burnout in a relationship.
Burnout.
Woo! Burnout in a relationship
So,
is real.
some of y'all burn out right now.
Right. It is true. Some of us, not some of us, some people are burnt out in a relationship. So listen, jump on in, jump on in, jump on in, jump on in. Get your questions. Grab your friends, grab your friend of me's and everybody else, and let them know that relationship talk with the Allens is on. Right. So listen, we said we're going to talk about burnout in a relationship. So I guess the first question would be is how do you even know if you are experiencing burnout in your relationship? Like that would be the number one question. How do you even recognize burnout in a relationship? Because it can be challenging,
Yeah.
right? It can be challenging, but there's signs, right? Because how many times you'll say stuff like, well, not you, but people say, I didn't see that coming. I didn't know, or man, that just came out of nowhere. Right? I don't, we've heard people say that.
Yeah. It sounds like they're not expecting it. When I think of burnout, I think of somebody that's just tired. They
Mhm.
just they're done. They're at their wits' end. That's what it sounds like. Burnout to me. You don't have any energy left,
Mhm.
to pour into. So
Mhm.
I think one way you can determine if you are experiencing burnout in a relationship is probably your lack of patience and your irritability.
Mhm. You're emotionally exhausted, right? When I think of burnout in a relationship, I think how much of it plays on our emotions, especially as a woman, right?
Mhm.
We just get emotionally exhausted. We're feeling drained and spent in the relationship because 9 out of 10 times we're the ones planning the date, asking, let's go do this, wanting to talk about it. So we are experiencing emotional burnout,
Mhm.
right? So some ways to know that you have burnout in your relationship is what? Emotionally exhausted.
Like like I said, irritable. Like you don't have patience for your spouse. They get on your
Mm-hmm.
nerves extremely easy.
Mm-hmm. Decreased intimacy,
Yeah.
right? If we go in from rabbits this week to all of a sudden we barely doing it but a couple of times a year, something's going on. If it's not a medical illness or something like that, it's a decreased intimacy. You avoid, there's no real conversations, there's a lot of avoidance, right? You in one room, I'm in another room, we're doing two separate things. It's almost like we're just cohabitating in a relationship,
Mhm.
cohabitating in the house because we're burnt out of this relationship. The relationship, to work on the relationship, is exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah, but what if one of you is burnout, but the other one isn't? Because I realize a lot of times that you may be into the point where you were burnt out, and I'm like, what's going on? Like I don't
Mhm.
even realize really there's a problem. So that's where you was talking about, like especially ladies can be emotionally burnt out, maybe from showing up all the time
Right. Right.
because you're tired of, like you said, planning the dates and doing the things like that, where it takes emotional energy for your expectations. You're expecting us to do it,
Mhm.
but we haven't showed up in that area. Maybe that's emotionally exhausting to you, but to me, it's like, oh, I'm not. I don't feel burnout
Mhm.
because maybe
Well,
it wasn't affecting me. Maybe I didn't know there was a problem.
right, because you're probably the one that's not doing anything, right? You're content. You're content with how the relationship is. You're content not going anywhere, not doing anything, not having that quality quantity time. You're just content. But to a person that wants to spend time together, that wants to connect, that wants to go out, that wants to do something, that wants to have a deeper conversation versus then what's going on with the kids, how was work and how was dinner, it becomes burnout to us because it's almost like we're pulling teeth with no Novocaine,
Mhm.
right? So that's how one person can be burnt out and the other not. But the question is, Is there anything wrong with being content with how the relationship is?
I mean if everything's good and everybody's happy, yeah, you should be content. I
Mhm.
I don't think there's anything wrong with being able to be content in every situation,
Mhm.
but also knowing that improvement is possible or improvement is needed, or you should always seek to better your relationship. Yeah, I think you should be content in your relationship,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to um, unmet expectations.
Right.
But also knowing that there's things I can do to make the relationship better, or
Mhm.
I can work on from my standpoint. But I think that's what could lead to some of the burnout if you feel like you're the only one doing anything.
Right. You said unmet expectations and even unspoken expectations. Because sometimes we're like, we don't want to say anything because you should know. We don't want to say anything because we've been together too long. We don't want to say anything. So they're unspoken expectations. So one of us is like, well, you should know better. And the other one's like, oh, everything's good because nobody's saying anything. Right.
Right.
So when there's a change in the communication, yeah, trust me, there's somewhere in there, there's burnout because now it's a noticeable decline in our communication with one another. And that should never be okay in any relationship. So, fellas, when y'all think the woman is quiet, that should not be okay. Like, oh man, she's not talking no more. You know what? Find out what's going on.
At first, you're like, yes, you're like, cool, like she's chill, I ain't hearing no issues, ain't no
Right.
problems. It's good, right? It's all good in the hood, but then it's almost like when you were babysitting, you had a kid, right? And they were little and they were quiet and you were good, but then they were too quiet. And you're like, hold on, something's wrong because I don't hear nothing, right? So when you don't hear anything, that could be a problem,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to dealing with your wife.
Yeah. And you gotta make sure you pay attention to what's happening in your marriage, right? So if you're feeling emotionally drained, disconnected, or like your marriage is on autopilot, it may be time to check in, right? Because so many of us have been there or are there now. If we be truthful and stop playing it up for Facebook. But truth is that you may be experiencing burnout in your relationship, right? But just because you experiencing burnout in your relationship, that doesn't mean it needs to be the end of the relationship, right? It doesn't have to be the end because we have burnout. It's like, when do we talk about this?
Right. Yeah, you have to make time. I think there are other ways to look at burnout could be as a result of, life just happening and you're
Mhm.
giving more attention to everything on the outside of your relationship
Mhm.
than you are to your relationship itself. So you're really focused on work, you're really focused on the needs of the kids, you're really focused on maybe a church or charity or something that you're involved in. And that has so much of your energy that
Mhm.
when it comes time to pour into your relationship, you
Right.
don't have no more energy left.
Right. So what you're saying is it could be, well, it's I hear you, but I also think it's got to be a combination because if I am having burnout with work and life and everything else, then I'm want something at home to, help fill that cup that I'm pouring out of. Right? So the burnout just continues and it's like, man, I did all of this and I'm at work and I'm doing all this for the kids. And now I got to go home and try to pour out to someone
Right.
who's just content at being a bump on the log, so to speak.
Well, maybe from a woman's standpoint. From a man's standpoint, if they feel like you're poured out to everything outside of the house,
Uh-huh.
when you come home, you just want peace. You don't wanna do anything. You wanna
Mhm.
rest because it's supposed to be your place of rest and to have peace. So I've been work all day, now I gotta come home, and it feels like work in a relationship
Right.
sometimes. So then it's like, "Man, I don't have the energy. No, I gotta plan this, I gotta plan that." And while we need to be more intentional, I think we have to take the focus off of everything that's on the outside so that we can reserve that energy to focus on our relationship in the house.
Right. I think that's good what you said. So let's talk about if you are experiencing burnout, right? But now, hey, it's time to talk about it. And it's
Mhm.
time for us to resolve how do you get over this burnout in a relationship, right? And the one thing is you have to communicate. You have to be willing to talk about your feelings.
Yeah.
So regardless to if both of you are feeling burnt out or if one is feeling burnt out, then we still have to respect one another enough to communicate about these things, right? So let me ask you this, because I'm saying we need to communicate, but what if one partner is reluctant to talk about it? What do we do?
There's a reason they're reluctant to talk about it. Maybe it's because of the way it feels when you talk about it, right? Maybe
Mhm.
it doesn't come off like we need to talk. It comes off like I'm going to the principal's office. It comes off like, "Oh, man, I'm in trouble. Oh, man, I gotta hear this. Oh my god," and truth be told, you have mentioned it, maybe you've said something 4, 5, 6, 7 times,
Right.
but it still doesn't change the fact that now when you wanna talk about it, we relate a lot of times we need to talk to a negative outcome,
Mhm.
right? Because it's
Mhm.
usually now you've at your wit's end, now I want a voice, we need to talk about this as an issue, and so a lot of times we need to talk about it already inside to us sounds
Mhm.
like, "Oh, man, there's gonna be a problem." "Oh, man, we about to have a problem," right?
Right. So, I think the most important thing to remember, especially if one of the partners is not a talker, right? I believe it's so important to approach the situation being sensitive and being patient and considerate of how your partner communicates, right? That's a big thing, is to understand how each other communicates to do so. Like once we drop the bombshell of, hey, I'm not happy, I'm not satisfied, I'm feeling burnt out, I feel like it's Groundhog Day, you know what? Give them space because I know you are a thinker, right? So you're a thinker. So I have to give you some space to think about it, to process that a little bit,
Takes me some
right?
time to
It's
get it down.
right. But sometimes we mostly the women, we don't want to give you the space. We want answers and we want it done right then and there. But I feel like it's important and I've learned to give you that space, but we set a boundary on that space. It's not like a day, 2 days, and 3 days. It no, no, and no. You gotta remember how your partner communicates, right?
It has to be an agreed boundary. Like, if
Yes.
you agree on a day, then, hey, that's what you agree to, but if you're like, "Hey, we need to come back in a couple hours and readdress this,"
Mhm.
and that's what you agree to, right?
Right.
I find women just naturally tend to be better communicators, and so while you wanna get it out right now, I think you guys process stuff so much quicker, and it's hard to keep up sometimes in the conversation,
Right.
and so I'm trying to process what you're saying, trying to process how you're feeling about it, and then trying to figure out why you feel that way, and then I'm looking at what you're saying I did, and I don't see what I'm doing wrong.
Right, right,
I
right.
gotta put all these puzzle pieces together, and you said it when you said it after the end of what you were saying, you already have the picture, but it takes us a little while to get there.
I agree. I also think it's all about the question too, right? Because sometimes we ask y'all a question and you'd be like, nope. We done said 20 minutes worth of something, you'd be like,
No.
right? So it's important that we ask the right question. So listen what I'm saying, ladies. Have what you want to say up front and then present it, right? Because open-ended questions is great. Something like, I love to hear your thoughts when you're ready. I
Yeah,
love to hear
yeah.
your thoughts about this when you're ready, right?
Boy,
So now I'm asking you for your thoughts. I can't
you
get
gonna
a nod on uh-huh
you gonna get some
or I
smoke co
agree with what
you
you
gonna get
say.
smoke coming out his ears. I wanna hear your thoughts when you're ready. Oh, man, I gotta think about this.
Right.
Yeah,
But that's true. That's how you got to communicate. Understand your partner, the way your partner communicate, and ask them open-ended questions. Show empathy to your partner. And I know that some of us are just tired, especially us that been married, you know, 20 years or more. We just tired of going through the same thing, having the same discussion, and feeling the same way with the same answer. But hey, try it differently. Be patient, be calm, be understanding of one another, and really listen to how each other feels about burnout, right? And just because you're not feeling burnout, that's not fair for you to not be able to meet your partner where they are.
right. Just because you don't feel burnout, and I think that's one of the biggest issues. It's like, if your spouse is saying they're burnt out or they're having a problem, and you're like, "Well, I don't have a problem, so I don't see what all the fuss is about," as if it's their like they have an issue. No, if they have an issue, you both have an issue,
Mhm.
right? And so
I like that.
I don't think it's good that if you're not the one burnt out, you need to be able to hear what your spouse is saying about how they're feeling neglected,
Mhm.
emotionally some type of way, or maybe for the 10,000th time, you're not doing this, or you haven't been doing this, and they got to remind you, then you have to, be able to be like, you know what, I hear you, and you have to be able to give uh, an ear to that
Right.
and be present in the moment,
Yes,
right?
yes, 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 yes. And whenever we have those conversations, we should make sure that we are talking to our partners, right? We're not battling each other. They're not our enemies, right? That they're not. We just have to make sure that each of us know that, hey, we're here, we're present, we're listening, and we want this to be a safe place, a supportive and a safe place for both of us to communicate our feelings about burnout in a relationship,
Mhm.
right? I think that's really important because safe place is real. Because are you going to open up if you don't feel safe?
No, and we talked about that before. Like, we used to have a safe place when you first started talking, a long time ago when you first got together. We talked about this at many of our speaking engagements and
Yeah.
marriage conferences, how conversation was just easy. And then as you begin to grow throughout your relationship, you don't talk as much. And so what has happened is you created a memory bank of times that conversations about certain topics didn't go well. And now it doesn't feel safe to talk about this particular topic. So
Mhm.
now when this topic comes up, automatically the wall goes up and the defense goes up. It's like, listen, I don't really want to deal with this. I
Right.
don't want to deal with this conversation because I already know where it's going to go. Right. And so that's where you get the yes, no answers. It's not a lot of interaction because there's a reluctance to go head on into the conversation
Mhm.
because of the way it may have ended in the past.
Mhm. I like that. That's true, right? Because we know that, the brain keeps a lot of
It
receipts
keeps
on what
receipts.
happened. The brain keeps receipts, but we don't want to be historians and keep going back to the past, right? Let's focus on the right now. The other thing I wanted to just bring up is like, okay, so we're talking about communication, we're talking about burnout in a relationship. But what happens if I'm coming to you with my heart on my sleeve and I'm pouring out my emotions, and then there's a negative reaction to what I said, right? Um, what do you think on that? I know I got some stuff to say, but
Well, well, won't you go ahead and say it? You said if I come to you and pour out my heart, so that's not. I can count on my hand maybe the number of times I've actually done that because
Mhm.
emotionally, like I'm just not gonna come pour out my because I don't really feel like emotionally I'm sufficient or deficient in a lot of areas
Right.
in the relationship, But if I was to come pour out my heart and then you just like responded negatively,
Right.
I'm not gonna wanna do that, no, or I'm gonna be angry about it, but I might not wanna do it again next time, right? So you're saying that if I say, "Okay, let's do this." So you come pour your heart out to me, and I'm just kinda like, "Whatever." I'm just being dismissive. Is that what
Right.
you're talking about?
Yes. You're being dismissive of my feelings. I done
So
poured out my feelings.
okay, I
I
got you.
told you I'm emotionally drained.
See,
I'm telling
I
you that
got
I
you.
need a date.
I'm with you.
I'm
See,
telling you that no.
I told y'all we slow. It took me a minute to get where she was going, right? Yeah, so if I'm just being dismissive of what you're saying, that makes you feel like I don't value your opinion. I don't value your emotions, your feelings,
Right.
and I didn't validate anything that you were feeling
Right.
and make you feel like what you're feeling is important to me.
Yes.
And so I'm just like, man, what up, man? All the time you got something to say. Every time you talk about this is where we at, man. I'm tired of talking. I don't want to hear all that. So now I just made you feel like whatever you're feeling doesn't mean anything.
So basically, this is why y'all think we have two heads, right? Because we're coming to you guys and we're like, listen, can we chat? We're soft, right? We might be crying a little bit because we're emotional, depending on the person. But nevertheless, we're pouring out our emotions, we're pouring out our feelings, and we're like, hey, this is what I need. I need you, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, uh-huh, I got you. What transpired in our ears was like, we spun around 3 times, clicked our heels. Is that all you
Yeah,
got to
cause
say? So
so
that's why y'all think we got personality disorders because we sat up there and poured out our heart and that's all you had to say?
because, you want me to match that energy? Like, I'm not there. Like, okay, I see that you're hurt. I
Right.
see that you're upset. So if you're wanting me to match that type of energy, maybe I'm just not gonna match that type of energy, but I could respond in a way that is more compassionate and more understanding of how you're feeling,
Yes,
you
and
know,
with some words.
and with some words,
Right?
yes.
And this is what I
You gotta
gotta
do better
say.
with words, y'all.
This is what I gotta say to my ladies: stay calm. Right? Stay calm. Take a deep breath and remain and maintain your composure, because when you poured your heart out and you feel like you are not heard and you are feeling dismissed, it can bring up a whole lot of other emotions, and it could cause you to now start attacking your partner, and your immediate impulsive response is negative. So now here we go again. Every time we try to talk, it's an argument,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
The other thing, make sure you stay on topic. Stay on topic. Because you know us, we go here, 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 and here. Just
Mhm.
stay on the topic of burnout. What are we going to do? And let the partner know. When you respond to me like that, it makes me feel discarded. It makes me feel dismissed. It doesn't make me feel like you're giving me the attention that I require on such a topic that's so important to me.
Yeah, and you know what? To add to that, I think also dismissing what you say, just kinda like, "Man, whatever." Like, honestly, it could be because maybe you're feeling convicted about what she's saying, and
Mm.
you know she's right, and you don't wanna hear it because it makes you feel some type of way,
Mhm.
because you know you forgot, because you know you should be doing better, and
Mhm.
now here she is bringing it to your attention again, and you don't wanna hear her telling you that you're doing it wrong
Right.
still, right?
Right.
And so what can happen is that it makes you feel convicted.
Mhm.
Sometimes when people feel convicted, instead of saying sorry, they get upset and they get defensive, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, but guys, listen, you can do it. Trust me,
Yes.
you can do it. When she brings it to your attention, just got to understand and hear her hurt behind the words. It's not
Mhm.
always that she's nagging you. She's telling you something that she need, like it's a need for her,
Right.
right? It's a
Mhm.
need for her, and we should do our best to try to address it. And I know it's hard at times because maybe your brain's not wired to think that way all the time. But listen, and listen, I'm guilty. I've heard it all before. You can
Yes.
look up the stats. You can look up, the parts on the car. You can look all that stuff up, and you can't look up where to go eat for dinner. Come on, fellas, we can do better. I know you can do it.
Yes, 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 yes. So he says, don't make it your reality. And I agree, because just because it happened yesteryear, we want to pull all of that back up into right now instead of dealing with it right now. Like, just deal with how we are right now. Stop bringing up yesteryear and what happened in all those other times, right? Because you grow, especially if you know you're growing.
Uh-huh.
So, how do you get over burnout? How do you get over this burnout that we have, right? How do we get over it?
Well, I think first of all, you got to be intentional. You got to
Mm.
prioritize some intentional time to connect. You got to set
Yes.
aside. It's got to be non-negotiable time.
Mhm.
We say it's non-negotiable, and we say that we're going to set aside what we call a date night. We say that, but if you don't schedule it,
That's right.
something's going to happen.
Mhm.
When we say non-negotiable, you have to put it into like your calendar, and you have to put the date, put it in the time, and where you're going.
That's right.
Because if you just say, "Yeah, we're going to do it," but if it's not scheduled, then something's going to happen and end up taking that place,
Something always comes up.
right? Yeah, in the military, we have something called a battle rhythm,
Mhm.
and it's how we synchronize everything that's going on with meetings, with training evolutions, deployments, and everything has to work in order. And you have to develop a battle rhythm, or else things get missed, things don't get addressed.
Mhm.
And so it's the same way in your relationship. You got to develop a rhythm that can best be um,
Right.
mitigating the risk when you implement a scheduling process. So let's say non-negotiable every Friday. Non-negotiable once a week. We're going to do this.
Right.
It don't have to be Friday. It could be Wednesday.
Right.
It could be
Whatever.
what?
Breakfast,
It could be
lunch,
breakfast.
whatever.
It
Yeah.
could be coffee every morning. Remember
Yeah.
we used to have coffee every
It,
morning on
yes.
the back patio,
Yes,
right?
yes, those were the best times. So I hear what you're saying. So basically, when you brought up the example of the military, it's almost like, what is the mission? And the mission of the marriage should be for us to have a happy, healthy marriage, right? So if that's the mission, to have a happy, healthy marriage, then what are we doing together to make sure we get there and we complete the mission? Because it takes all of us to complete the mission. I can't do it by myself.
Yeah. And I think we get wrapped around the axle a lot of times, guys do. we try to plan a huge event. It's gotta be big all the time. Like,
Right.
it come to trying to do birthdays or I'm sweating. I got anxiety. My palms are like, I'm like, "Golly, I don't know what to get
I
this
thought you
woman."
was better at
Like,
that.
I've been married to this woman forever, and, like, every time it just feels like a big event. But if you do little things throughout the year, it won't be feel like such a
Right.
tall order, right? Just holding hands when you go for a walk, and do stuff together. Has to be small stuff that helps, right?
The small things definitely help. Big things are great too, but if I gotta wait on a big thing and we got 365 days out of the year and I'm waiting on this one big thing, what's happening for the rest of the time? What are we really doing to stoke the embers of the fire to keep the flame lit? Right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah. What's up, brother, Mr. Savell? Hey,
yes,
him and his wife have a marriage show. They do as well.
yes,
And he's saying you got to be spontaneous at times to help avoid burnout.
yes.
Spontaneous. Listen, that's a big one for us, man.
Not us.
It's a big one for us.
For guys, some
Spontaneous.
guys.
Some guys, I guess, I struggle with it, being spontaneous from
Yeah.
time to time. But hey, what does it mean when you're being spontaneous? What does that show you?
It shows me that, and I think you have gotten a lot better. A whole lot, 1,000%. Would I want some more? Of course. But let me tell you what, you've gotten so much better. I like the when you pop up in these little cards. I like you put like this little thing on my mirror that said, "Hey, beautiful," and I wasn't expecting it, or the note here, or when I open up my laptop, there's a note like that. That to me is it speaks to my heart. I don't need no big old spa day going away. I don't need all of that. It's just the little things because it's letting me know that you see me, right? And it's letting
You
me
were thought
know
about,
that
huh?
I'm thought about, and especially depending on the type of work that we do, and especially my work, it lets me to know that hey, somebody else is thinking about me, sees me, appreciates me, and it's just like you got this, babe. Go ahead. That's what that does to me, right? And that's something you guys got to communicate to your spouse, like what does him or her, right? Because there's some women out there that's not emotional. What does him or her being spontaneous do for you? And for me, it makes my heart just leap, right?
Mhm.
I love the going away. I love all that stuff. But when I tell you this dude right here knows how to write some poems, just some little poems alone is like, oh my gosh, So when we cross over to the other side, my kids are probably gonna be like, oh my God, mom kept all of these. Yes, because it came from him and it meant a lot to me. So that's what being spontaneous means to me.
Man,
Share that with your
did
spouse.
y'all get all that? That made me feel good hearing all of that. Yeah, I gotta do better. I gotta do more. Y'all pray my strength to the Lord. Yeah,
Lord's not going to do what you can do.
yeah. He said, "Tell him you're trying and that you're thinking about them."
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. It lets them know that hey, this is me. And when you do it right, and I like that he put that word trying in there because a lot of people say I'm trying and they don't do anything. But when you actually do it, it's letting me see that you are putting forth the effort,
Mhm.
right? And it's the effort that is like, man, I appreciate that. It's the effort that's going to make me feel like, okay, he's hearing me. That's what the effort is. But all this, I'm trying and it don't never get done. You just setting yourself up for failure. I'm trying to cut the TV off, but you're not pressing the off button,
Mm.
but doing the actual effort to do it. And it might not be what you think she likes, but let me tell y'all something. Most ladies, most of us are so simple. Y'all think we're complex, but we're so simple. We're so simple. It's the little things, right? So we also have to do what? Create space. Create space for us to be us, right? Individual growth. We got to do that and then come together because sometimes burnout is not just about the relationship.
Mm.
This helps with intimacy. Right. So it's not just always about the relationships, but my job is taxing. Sometimes I don't get off work till 7:30 at night. Then I gotta, jump right on to Bible study. And then there's other things like your job was taxing when you was in the military.
Mhm.
Right. So there's not a lot of time for us.
Yeah, but creating that space for your individual growth. That means also taking care of your own personal health and well-being. If you're not well, you can't be there for her, right? If your mind's not right, if your body's not right, spiritually you're not connected to the Lord, you can't be there for her. So you have to make sure that you take time to take care of you
Yes,
so that
self-care.
so that you can be better for her, right?
Yes. So I say it like this. I need to be the best version of me so I can show up better for we. Y'all got that? I got to be the best version of me so I can show up for we. Because if I'm not my best, I'm giving you what I have left, and that in itself can be exhaustion. So even though it may not be you causing exhaustion in a relationship, I'm looking at it this way because it's like now you're a chore instead of my partner.
Oh man.
Mhm.
Now you're a chore instead of a partner,
Hey,
right?
it's real. Like burnout is real. You're a chore instead of my partner. And those are the things that we have to address so we don't want marriages to feel like a chore.
No, and what also can help with that is if you when you encourage your spouse to engage in the things that they like to do, right? I used to feel so guilty
Mhm.
because I was gone so much. I was
Mhm.
out to sea so much. I wasn't at sea and we was in port, I was staying in duty. Like I was always gone, seemed like. So I felt guilty about doing anything for me when I was
Mhm.
home because I was never home or I wasn't available as often as I wanted to
Right.
be. So if I wanted to go to the gym, or I wanted to go shoot ball, or I wanted to go work on the car, I felt guilty about taking that time away from her. And so it started feeling like, man, I don't ever get to do what I want to do.
Right.
So I'm always pouring out at work, and now I'm always trying to pour out here, but it created bitterness and resentment
Mhm.
because I didn't get to really get that time to pour back into myself.
Right.
I didn't get that time to de-stress and engage in some of the things that I like to do
Right.
that really helps me to
Yeah.
recharge.
Everything is a healthy balance, right? Everything is a healthy balance because I shouldn't be doing too much of me, right? And we're not doing anything together, right? It's so many of us out here living our own life. We do everything separately. I know some people I didn't even know they were married. Like I knew because they said it, but I've never in my life met their partner because they do everything separately, right? That shouldn't be the case.
Right.
When you see one, you should see the other. I should see some signs that you're married, right? So we just have to make sure that there's a healthy balance in our personal self-care and then how we maintain this
I
relationship.
don't think there's nothing wrong if you both have a lot of interest together and you do a lot of stuff together, and that's relaxing for you. But she's she don't like to work on cars. Like I like rebuilding engines and stuff like a lot of people don't like doing that. But to me, it helps relax my mind. And
Mhm.
and so I say I'm about to go tinker. I'm gonna go do some man stuff. That means okay, I already know I ain't trying to go work in the yard. I ain't trying to go build no fence or work on no car. That's not what she's trying to do. But she knows I might be going to do that. While some people view it as work, to me it's relaxing.
Right.
So she
Right.
encourages me to do that.
Yep. Yep. And I do something on my own instead of making you feel guilty. Like you still tinkering on that car, you still doing this, girl. Go get yourself a life and let that man have his hobby, and then y'all come back together, and vice versa. Like yes,
He's
right.
home tinkering on that
At
car.
least he's home tinkering. He
Tinkering on
ain't
that car.
tinkering somewhere else. And I'm gonna leave that one alone for another show. So the whole importance of being together in a relationship is, can you imagine if we were in a canoe, right, and you rowing one way and I'm rowing another way?
We going in circles.
We going in circles. We're going in circles. So, the whole thing about that is we got to row together. It makes it easier, right? And if we're rowing together, we're making it easier. So if I say, hey, I need about 5 minutes, you still got that. You're not trying to fight the other ripple I put in there. Your rowing is smooth. And then we can hold each other up sometimes because it's like, you know what, babe, I'm exhausted. And I tell you this often. I'll be like, babe, I'm just tired. He's like,
Yeah,
I got you.
and that's when you gotta have the energy to step in and pull the load because a lot of times it's not gonna be 50-50. When we say marriage is 50, we don't say marriage is 50-50.
100,
We say
100.
marriage is 100 and 100 because you can't show up with half of yourself. But
That's right.
there are gonna be times that she doesn't have her 100, right? She may be depleted from work and she's down to 50% or she's down to 40%. That's where I gotta, I'm gonna pull her other 70. I'm gonna put the work in, and I got you.
Right.
Because there's going to be a time when I don't have it,
Yep.
and she's going to give me that grace and be like, you know what? I see you're spent. I'm gonna take care of it. I'm gonna help you out, and I'm gonna pull the line.
That's right. Right. And that's important again, because if we creating all these riptides in our relationship, then we're fighting each other. So how it's going to make it harder for me to have you.
Ooh,
Right?
man.
So we got to that's why we got to row together, because we just want to make sure that we a cohesive unit,
Yeah.
if that makes sense, right?
Mhm.
And our big thing is, as we're finishing up, about talking about burnout in a relationship, you have to communicate
Openly.
openly,
Mhm.
right? You have to communicate openly. Guys, listen, let her talk about this openly, right? Because you know what? Jody down the street at the water cooler
There go Jody,
listening.
boy. That Jody been around for a while, man. Jody been.
Right, and it could be something so easy, and you got Susan down there over there at the copy machine, and they just got ears to listen. Somebody's gonna listen. So why can't we listen to our partner? What is it that we feel like, I heard this before, I don't want to listen to no more? But if you heard it before, why don't you just do it? Like, that's the part I think I don't understand as a woman, right? If I'm saying take out the trash, take out the trash, take out the trash, and you're like, man, I'm so sick of you telling me to take out the trash. "Oh, okay, why didn't you just take out the trash?" I guess I don't understand as a woman that part of why the men find it hard to plan a date, be romantic, go to Victoria's Secret and buy us something,
I think
whatever.
well, and maybe we don't have time to address it all in this episode, obviously, but I think it goes back to that you talk about being in that circle. You're kind of rolling in a circle. You get on the
Mhm.
hamster wheel. When it's lacking on both sides, she's struggling for that emotional connection, and he's struggling for something else. He may be struggling for that touch, right, or that respect, and so now he's lacking and she's lacking, and he doesn't give to her, so she doesn't receive what she needs, so she can't pour into him what he needs, and it
Mhm.
becomes a problem. And so what we have to remember is that for us to draw close, we're always working against we're always going against the grain, it
Right.
seems like, because guys need intimacy to feel close, right? But women need conversation and communication to feel close
Mhm.
before intimacy, right?
Mhm.
So before we can even meet in the middle, right? If I want to be close to you, I need intimacy. But in
Right.
order for her to be close to me, to get the intimacy, she needs communication, right? So
Yes.
we're constantly got to work and understand that we're made different. We got to be willing to work for you know to address the others' needs.
Right. And
Mhm.
I like what Edward said. He said the wrong listener, listening for opportunities to take advantage of your situation. So
The
I
wrong
like
listener.
that. I like that he said that, because if we're listening to prove our point, prove you wrong, listening to tit for tat, we're not hearing one another. We're just not. We're not hearing one another. And this is why we keep revisiting the same thing over and over and over again, because we're coming to you with our problem, with our concern, but nobody has the solution, right? Because I'm burnt out and I'm tired. You're tired of hearing about it and you don't want to hear it either. So, my suggestion would be, if I'm coming to you and I'm saying, babe, I'm burnt out in a relationship, and here's what I suggest. I suggest, can we go out every second and fourth Friday, so that we can have a date night, or Saturday. That's my solution, right? With the understanding that that might not always work for you. So I
Yeah,
need to be flexible with that. But you got to give me something. You
yeah,
can't just say okay, and then months and months and months and months pass and there's nothing there, right? So if I'm offering a solution, I don't want you to just take my solution, because that's how we get into it's always got to be your way, right?
mm,
That's a whole nother thing.
yeah. I think what helps with that communication is the I statements,
Hmm.
right? When you're having these conversations that are hard, is is expressing the conversation how it makes you feel. Like I feel, when this is happening and you're not addressing my need, it makes me feel like I'm not important to you.
Hmm.
Instead of saying, I don't mean nothing to you because you don't never do this. or you don't
Right.
never do that.
Right.
And it's automatically now you just accuse me of not ever doing anything, and I'm the reason that you feel this type. It automatically sounds harsh, even if it's right. It could be all the way right, but the
Right.
I statements will get us a lot farther.
I think so because the words never, every time, and always are
I can't.
destructive
Yeah,
in a
them three
marriage
words,
because it's
boy.
not every single time, it's not always, and it's not never, right? So we got to stop with those negative words because all we're doing is we are feeding our relationship negativity. So how we supposing to have a positive union
Mhm.
when we keep feeding the relationship negative stuff,
Negative stuff.
right?
Is some of y'all amening right now? Talking about, I always hear that in my comment. I ain't never not
Right.
heard her say that. Always
Right.
and never. Right? Those are pretty hard, pretty concrete statements.
Yes,
I don't
right.
think that's all the way true. So,
Right.
like you said, I statements.
Yes. So even if you are experiencing burnout, let's offer a solution together. Let's get to the solution together. There's always going to be, and I said it this time because there's always going to be problems.
Mhm.
But just like there's a problem, there will be a solution, right?
Mhm.
So, solution definitely is communicating, definitely hearing each other, being positive, and listen, right? Having God in your relationship helps.
Mhm.
I am telling you what I know. Because if it wasn't for God, we would not be here today. So having God in your relationship helps because listen to this. We want to, or I used to, I'll put myself on the line here. I used to be like, Lord, get him. Get him. Cause he not, I done told him what I want. I even went as far as putting the envelope, remember put the envelope, put stuff in it that I like to do, all this stuff or things that I like, because y'all kept saying I was so difficult. So I did all of that, list of stuff, everything. Get him, Lord. It wasn't until I got arrested by God and I sought God for what I was doing wrong. And then I started saying, Lord, help him fall in love with you. Right.
Mhm.
Because when this relationship is great, like this between me and God, even for myself, it's easier to go like this, right? So God pours down his love here, and I pour out the love here, right? So I keep saying this, our partners are not our enemies. And sometimes when we're going through a hard time, we have to say, Lord, the way I see my partner right now is not good. So please allow me to see them through your eyes, God, right? Because to God, we are his loving children, right? We
Yeah.
are his children, we are his beloved. So again, if we're loving God and God's loving us, it'll be easy for us to love our spouses.
Yeah. Hey, fellas, I think we have to have a closer relationship with the Lord. The closer your relationship is with God, the better you'll be able to love your wife because you understand that in that relationship you have with God is grace. There's a lot of grace in that relationship because God constantly forgives us. He's given us grace in areas He knows we're weak in, He knows we're going to fall short of, right? And so we have to extend that same grace to our spouse, right? So whenever we know that, hey, he's going to miss the mark because he's just not good at this, I can extend some grace, even though I still expect it, even though I still need it. I can remind him with love and with grace. And even though I know she doesn't, do this or she doesn't say this or she talks to me this type of way, and I don't like that, I can still extend that grace because God has given that grace to me
Hmm.
because I understand that that's her personality. That's
Hmm.
she talks at a high decibel. It doesn't mean she's being disrespectful, and so I have to be able to extend that grace to her because God has given that grace to me.
Hmm. Yep, that's good. That's good. So, and I like that you say that because I'm from New York. I talk with my hands. If y'all heard me and my family talking, y'all would call the police, think we were fighting, but that's just how we talk. We just loud and just like passionate. And then he's like, "You're yelling at me. You're disrespectful." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like this is what But we again had to learn how to each other
I'm
communicate,
like, who you
right?
talking to? You don't talk. I'm a man. You don't talk to me like that. Hold on. She's like, what's wrong with you? This how I talk. She got. Hey, listen. She got that Samuel Jackson talk. I'm not yelling. That's how I talk.
Right. Yeah. So listen, you guys, we gotta have open communication. about burnout because open communication is the key to preventing long term damage. Remember, the mission is a happy, loving, healthy marriage. We can't do that if we're everybody's closed off, right? And we got all kind of walls up in between us. We can't achieve that,
Yeah.
right? You said use the I statements. I
Mhm.
think that's really, really important,
Mhm.
right? So, marriage burnout is real. It
Mhm.
just is. But make sure you make your marriage a priority. Make sure you make you a priority. Make sure you make we a priority. God has definitely got to be a priority. And have grace like you were saying because just because I don't do it right now, don't mean, well, it's been 2 weeks, so I knew he wasn't going to do it, or she's been this. No, give some grace. But fellas, ladies, listen, it shouldn't, if we had this conversation within the month, something's got to get done, right? Something's got to be done. It's really not that hard, right?
Yeah. And so listen, we having these conversations, we're having these talks to
Hmm.
help people out because it's like I used to tell my sailors, nobody joined the military to drive their career off a cliff.
Right.
Nobody joined the military to fail. Right? Nobody got married just saying, "You know what? I'm gonna marry her, but I'm done with this in 6 months. It ain't gonna work." That should nobody should enter into a relationship that way. So it's not intentional. But if you're not intentional with your marriage, then your marriage will definitely suffer. So you have to be intentional at building and working on it together.
Right. All right, guys. So listen, this is Relationship Talk with the Allens. And if you appreciated this talk, we want to have many, but we want to hear what you have to say, right? Here, we want to hear your topic. So let us know, put it in a group, drop it in the chat, some topics that you want to know. By no means are we experts. We've been married long enough. We've got the Lord on our side. You got a licensed professional counselor here, the coach here. So, we got some good credentials to speak on these topics. So, until next time, it's important that you choose you. You choose your marriage, right? Choose love. Keep showing up. That's
Yes, keep
important.
showing up.
Keep investing in your marriage, right? Now, I'm grateful for everybody that been on here. We appreciate all y'all, but if it was something ratchet, we
Man,
would
yeah,
have
we'd be
hundreds
viral.
of people on here.
We'd be viral. There'd be
Right.
thousands of people viewing it.
Right.
But anytime you're doing something positive or you're doing something for the Lord, people don't want to watch that, right?
Mm-mm.
They want to feed their spirit junk,
Right.
So we appreciate those who tuned in, those who watch. Share it,
Yes.
like it, send it to somebody, and so that you can help them get better at their relationship as well.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Relationship Talk with the Allens. We will see y'all next time. Y'all have a wonderful night. Good
All right.
night.
Holla.